It gives me great pleasure to introduce Ambassador Collin Murdoch.
Thank you so much, David. I almost didn't recognize myself there. And I want to thank you for all the great pioneering work that you are doing in terms of this organization and this event. Yes. So David, other organizers, speakers and panelists, colleagues and friends, I feel honored, flattered even, to be asked to deliver a statement at this event on behalf of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States. I make these remarks on behalf of the Director General of the OECS, Dr. Didacus Jules, who called me and asked me specifically to be here. The collaboration has the potential to bring important benefits for the people they serve in two different regions, and I hope this event will shine a light on the path that we must follow to bring these benefits. We are living in an era where the enormous economic potential that exists between Africa and the Caribbean is finally beginning to be explored and developed by the deliberate decisions of our business leaders and our political leaders. The political nexus between Africa and the Caribbean was established long ago. It goes back many years. And it goes back to the days of the political independence of both Africa and the Caribbean, and this story is well known. But the demand of today's times, however, is that the strong political bonds between Africa and the Caribbean be taken to the next level. These bonds, and their strong bonds, must serve as a foundation to build the economic, business, and commercial ties that bring genuine and meaningful development to both regions. The Africa CARICOM Summit, about which my colleague ambassador spoke, Karen May, just now, was an important step in this direction. The declaration by the African Union that the African diaspora, wherever it may be, constitutes the sixth region of Africa. That was another important step. And the African diaspora is scattered in many countries across the globe, from Brazil to Haiti to the United States. But this morning I want to focus some attention on a small part of the African diaspora that occupies the small islands of the Eastern Caribbean. In Geneva, where I'm based, and Geneva is an international diplomatic center and is home to over 40 UN agencies and international organizations, over 400 NGOs, and 177 diplomatic missions. I find that when I tell people I represent OECS, they have no idea what OECS is. They don't say it, but you can see from the look on their face that really you need to explain. So, the OECS, a grouping of small islands in the Eastern Caribbean, the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, is an intergovernmental organization that is based really on the pooling of sovereignty. It is an economic union. You have the European Economic Union, and you have the Eastern Caribbean Economic Union, and they share many similar institutions. So we're a lot like the EU, but with better weather. The Economic Union consolidates the small markets and populations of the OECS and removes the barriers to the movement of people, capital, and goods between the territories. And this makes the total population of the Economic Union approximately 650,000 people. But it is important to remember that because the economies of the member states are based on residential tourism, hotel tourism, the true market size is actually several million people. And the OECS members have many of the traits of a political and economic system that is conducive to economic development: free capitalism, the rule of law, the protection of private property, and political stability, marked by free and fair elections. But let us not forget also the associate members of the OECS: Montserrat, the British Virgin Islands, Anguilla, Guadeloupe, and Martinique. And we have Saint Martin and Saint Martin knocking on the door, and the OECS is currently in negotiations with both these territories for them also to become associate members. This is important for two reasons. One, these territories are gateways to their metropoles, whether the UK or the EU. And B, Caribbean countries have an economic partnership agreement with the European Union, under which goods exported from Caribbean countries enter the European Union quota-free and duty-free. And the European market is a market of over 500 million people. So the OECS has established regional institutions that manage their shared space. We have a single currency, a single central bank, a single regional court, and we have many regional institutions that manage various sectors. The Eastern Caribbean Telecommunications Authority manages the telecommunications sector. The Eastern Caribbean Civil Aviation Authority manages civil aviation. And these institutions ensure the most efficient management across national boundaries of a shared space, backed by harmonized policies in many areas. Now, if we are looking, as we are, at developing business ties between Africa and the Caribbean, we need to look at institutions, because it is institutions more than people who do things. And I believe one such institution is the Africa Exim Bank, which has shown initiative in developing business ties with Caribbean countries and with Caribbean companies. And this relationship has great potential. Every great cause needs a champion, and we need more champions. Innovative banking solutions, together with other instruments that facilitate business development, are what is solely needed to properly connect two different dynamic regions. But I'm not going to gloss over the challenges that exist and that companies face when investing in the Caribbean region, including in the Eastern Caribbean. I believe Karen May spoke to some of them, the difficulties of scaling up small size. Small markets are always a challenge, even when consolidated under an economic union. The financing of startups is a challenge. In fact, there are those who say, if you are doing a startup and you end up in a bank, you are already in the wrong place. Banks in the region tend to be risk averse, relying on a captive market in real estate and automobiles. It's an easy business. It's almost a cartel. But there is no doubt that there is a lack of a range of financial instruments to support startups and other businesses, such as venture capital funds. But even so, banking alone or venture capital funds alone, no matter how ambitious and innovative, will not do the trick. It needs the kind of economic infrastructure that facilitates business investment. I mean double taxation agreements, an agreement on the promotion and protection of investments, specific trade agreements, and other agreements. What we also need is an Africa-Caribbean Trade and Investment Commission, where both sides will sit together on a commission and push the kind of policies and the kind of institutional development that we need to really develop business. Investment does not happen by osmosis. People have to move, and that means movement has to be facilitated. It has to be facilitated by visa waiver agreements, and most importantly, by regular, convenient, reasonably priced air transport. Direct flights between the Eastern Caribbean will cut out the middleman. And by the middleman, I mean Heathrow and Gatwick. and shave a few hours off flight times. It will also mean that a business person will not need to have 2 visas just to enter one country. The Caribbean region remains, unfortunately, a hodgepodge of outdated visa waiver agreements that do not fit together well. Moving seamlessly through the region for an African investor would be a frustrating impossibility unless the Caribbean governments take the bold decision to reactivate the visa waiver arrangements that obtained during the Cricket World Cup of 2007. This will not work in 2024, and it is a major stumbling block to deepening business ties and business development between the 2 regions. If these practical matters are not addressed and resolved urgently, the chances of success of any investment are very slim. The air transport sector is one into which both Eastern Caribbean airlines and African airlines must boldly step. And for the Caribbean, I mean airlines like Liat, and for the Caribbean, I mean airlines like Air Peace. And there have already been some developments in this direction, both in terms of establishing flights and, of course, air services agreements. All these factors must come together well and in good time in order for the potential of Africa-Caribbean economic and business development to be realized. So what are the areas of economic interest? Tourism is an obvious one between Africa and the Caribbean regions, especially because it is largely untapped. Once direct flights materialize, it will take 6 hours to fly from West Africa to the Eastern Caribbean. Music is another area of great potential. Caribbean music is a fantastic international brand, whether it is reggae, calypso, soca, zouk, or any of the other variants. And African music is now taking the world by storm. Fashion and design is another area that has great business potential in both directions. Innovative solutions are a good foundation for new businesses. And I believe High Commissioner Hill spoke about innovations in the blue economy. And I want to mention one more, and that is sargassum seaweed. Sargassum seaweed is a foul-smelling, disgusting, brown mass that is polluting the beaches all over the Caribbean from Mexico to Miami. It is, in fact, destroying tourism. However, sargassum has great economic potential. And research indicates that sargassum can produce pharmaceuticals, it can produce fertilizers, it can produce plastic-type products like furniture. And what it takes is investment and innovation. So we can turn a disaster into a profit with the right business acumen and, of course, the right investment. You know, I do a lot of my work at the WTO in Geneva. And one thing has become clear to me, and that is that the future of trade is digital and green. So, I call on all of us to grasp this future with both hands And I pledge the full cooperation of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States with ACSIS in doing whatever is necessary to bring this future to reality. Thank you so much.